This is the voice of Turkey. Today is 2nd of April 2013. This is the Voice of Turkey's English language transmission broadcasting from Ankara in the 31-meter band between 1830 and 1930 UTC on 9,785 kHz to Europe, in the 41-meter band between 2030 and 2130 UTC on 7,205 kHz to South Asia and Australia, and in the 31-meter band on 22 and 2300 hours UTC on 9,830 kHz to Europe, Eastern United States of America, and Eastern Canada. The Voice of Turkey is also beamed between 03 and 0400 hours UTC in the 31-meter band on 9,515 kHz to Europe, the United States, Eastern Canada, and Cuba. Between 03 and 0400 hours UTC in the 49-meter band on 6,165 kHz to Iraq, Syria, Iran, and the Arabian Peninsula. You can listen to us over the Turksat 3 satellite and on the internet at www.trt.net.tr through the Voice of Turkey link. Please note that transmissions broadcast between 2030 and 2130 UTC, between 22 and 2300 hours UTC, and between 03 and 0400 hours UTC are pre-recorded. Our email address is englishdesk@trt.net.tr. But first, a quick look at the headlines. President Abdullah Gül visits Riga. Greek Sipit factory to lift ban on casinos. A protest demonstration was held in Azerbaijan on the 20th anniversary of the Armenian invasion of Kalbajar Rayon. Slovenia supports Croatia's EU entry. And Lithuania takes over the EU term presidency in June. And now the news. It is the first visit at presidential level from Turkey to Latvia and Lithuania after an interval of 10 years. President Abdullah Gül is in Riga, the first leg of his 4-day visit to the Baltic states. He started his official contacts on Tuesday morning. President Gül was welcomed by Latvian President Andris Bērziņš in an official ceremony. The two presidents had a private meeting, chaired talks between delegations, and held a joint press conference. President Gül said that his visit opened a new page in relations between the two countries. Touching on the importance of this visit, President Gül said, "We thank Latvia's support for Turkey's EU membership and wish that this support will continue. Latvia will be EU term president in 2015, and the same year Turkey will host G20 countries summit. I believe that this visit has opened a new page in relations. This topic was one of the items on the agenda at our talks. I gave information about the process, and EU Minister Bosch briefed us on the current situation. Latvia attends meetings that we do not. We wanted Latvian officials to know and express our theses, and it was very useful." President Gül will receive the Speaker of Latvian Parliament, and a series of cooperation agreements in various fields will be signed between the two countries after talks. President Gül will also visit the Museum of the Occupation of Latvia and address businessmen of the two countries at Turkey-Latvia Business Forum. After the completion of his contacts in Latvia, President Gül will move on to Lithuania, that will take over the EU term presidency in the second half of 2013. An agreement between TRT and Lithuania's state-run television will be signed as part of the visit. The agreement will be signed by TRT Director General Ibrahim Şahin on behalf of TRT. President Gül is accompanied on his visit by Transportation, Navigation and Communication Minister Binali Yıldırım and EU Minister Egemen Bağış. Greek Cypriot leader Nikos Anastasiades will travel today to discuss the Greek officials' new measures he plans to take to kickstart the economy. Anastasiades has drafted a plan containing 12 articles, the most interesting of which is to lift ban on the casinos in the island despite an objection by the Orthodox Church. The plan, which stipulates tax exemptions on profits reinvested on the island, easing of payments terms and interest rates on loans, insurance of construction licenses within 30 days, will be voted at the Greek Cypriot cabinet in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, major depositors and the biggest lender at the Greek Cypriot administration, the Bank of Cyprus, will lose around 6% of savings above €100,000. The Bank of Cyprus said it is suspending its activities in Romania for a while, and it will sell all its 10 branches. Bank of Cyprus branches in Greece were purchased by a Greek bank, while branches in Russia, Britain and Ukraine are still operating. It has been claimed that the family of Anastasiades transferred all their funds to London. According to a claim in the Greek Cypriot media, a company owned by people close to Anastasiades transferred €21 million to Britain before bank accounts were frozen. Anastasiades ordered the launch of an investigation on the matter. 3 people were apprehended at the Greek Cypriot airport as they were trying to leave the country with €200,000 on them, and all the money were confiscated. Meanwhile, Russia said it won't help Russian depositors whose funds at the Greek Cypriot banks were sequestered.
Lithuania takes over the EU term presidency in June. Vilnius administration is trying to open at least 2 more chapters of talks during this 6-month period. President Abdullah Gül, who is visiting Latvia today, will then visit Lithuania, and that attaches importance to relations with Turkey and continuation of talks between Ankara and Brussels. Ahead of this visit, Lithuanian President Dalia Grybauskaitė told TRT News that only Turkish people can decide whether or not to be in EU at the end of talks. The Lithuanian president is elected by people. Dalia Grybauskaitė became president after winning 96% of the vote in 2009 election. Lithuanian president represents her country at all international platforms and the EU. Stressing that the Union has changed and only its members that joined it by their own will can decide how the Union will shape in the future, President Grybauskaitė said, "Our objective during the EU term presidency is to stick to last year's roadmap, envisaging opening of more chapters with Turkey." President Grybauskaitė stressed that the willpower of the countries is valid in maintaining talks, reminding that Turkish people will say the last word. The EU is going through an economic crisis during this process. This has an impact on Lithuania as well. The country faces a major unemployment issue and energy shortage. We depend on energy from Russia that uses its energy power not only for economic but also for political reasons. There are some sensitive points stemming from our historical relations, but a neighboring country is a neighboring country, and it is impossible for us to choose our neighbors, she said. This economic crisis and recession has not decreased Lithuanian tourists' interest in Turkey. About 70,000 Lithuanian tourists visited Turkey, and their popular holiday destinations are Antalya and Alanya. More Lithuanian tourists are expected to visit Turkey after Turkish Airlines increases the number of its direct flights in June.
Slovenia ratified Croatia's European Union accession bid on Tuesday. The 2 countries agreed last month to iron out a decades-long dispute over a shuttered bank that blocked Zagreb's entry into the European Union. Slovenia's parliament voted unanimously in favor of Croatia's bid to become the 28th member of the bloc. Slovenia's Prime Minister Alenka Bratušek said, "Today is a very important day for both countries. We had many obstructions ahead of us, but we removed them by establishing dialogue." Croatia's Prime Minister Zoran Milanovic also followed the session at the Parliament of Slovenia. Pointing to the fact that Slovenia will become their closest partner in the bloc, Milanovic said the 2 countries will join forces to take their economies out of the crisis. Germany, Belgium, Denmark and Netherlands are expected to follow suit after the European Commission said last month that Croatia had met all requirements and was ready to join.
The news continues on the English language broadcast of the Voice of Turkey.
Assad forces continue air and ground attacks in Syria. The latest offensive killed 120 people. Assad forces mounted attacks with heavy weaponry in a number of cities, among them Damascus, Aleppo, and Homs. Yarmouk camp, where Palestinian refugees are staying, was also targeted by Assad troops. Several people lost their lives in the missile attack carried out near the campsite. Aleppo is still under heavy bombardment. Violent crashes are taking place around the airport in the city. Syrian human rights organization said 3,774 people were killed in operations by Assad forces in March, and of this number, 321 are children and 267 are women. Meanwhile, Syrian opposition set up legal offices in foreign countries to reclaim funds of the Assad regime.